1, 2, 3, yeah! This is Amari Purple Talk. Yes. Welcome to episode 93 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, Imaginationist, comic book myth builder, and the Vic Sage of Funk. Thank you once again for tuning in. Please leave your comments in the comments section below, and please download on your favorite podcast platform. If you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And please continue to send your questions or topic suggestions for Amari Purple Talk. And how you can do that is by clicking the link in the show notes below, either the website link for Amari Communications, or by following me on Twitter at RichardCole_now. Please use the hashtag Amari Purple Talk, and your topic or question might just be read in a future episode. All right, and with that out of the way, let's get it started. All right, this week is our spoiler review of Prince and the Parade Sign of the Times era studio sessions, 1985 to 1986, written by Dwayne Tudor. And once again, thanks to the publishers and the author. The publishers are Roundin and Littlefield. Thanks for my advance copy, as I am still waiting for my actual physical copy to arrive, which I pre-ordered long before I was asked to do a review of the book. So I'm still waiting for Amazon for the physical copy, but thanks for the advance copy. And I've been enjoying that, and it's been easy to make notes for this week's review. I've seen a lot of you on social media. You have your physical copies. I'm so happy for each and every one of you. So, again, hence the title, Spoiler Review. So I'm going to have a lot of spoilers. So if you don't like having things spoiled for you, I know it's not quite like a novel or a movie, but it's a riveting narrative nonetheless. So if you don't like things being spoiled, and if you want to kind of have the experience for yourself, either finish reading the book or go buy your copy and then tune back into this episode. Speaking of copies, on Dwayne's Facebook page, he expressed some displeasure of PDF copies of the book being distributed for free, as far as we know. But it's still being distributed for free, circulating around amongst, I guess, the collector circles. It takes a lot of work to produce something of this magnitude. And this isn't like, recording artists where, they signed a multi-million-dollar contract and, granted there's bootleggers around, but, they still have recording revenue and touring revenue. A lot of people like Dwayne, they also have a day job, and to produce something of this quality, it takes some money to do that. And here we are 2 books in, and, he would like to have a 3rd book. But in order to get that 3rd book, then those sales have to justify. So, hey, just go out and buy a physical copy. Now, hey, everybody's economic situation is different. Like I said, you've heard me speak on this program numerous of times, especially in the last year, about my, what I call my essentially non-essential essential gig. And, it, like I said, it does what it does. We're responsible, got to keep your lights on, got to keep food on the table, got to keep your wheels running so you can get back and forth to the gig, that type of thing. So when I do this podcast, it's a labor of love and predominantly free. Thanks to each and every one of you that does support the show in the way of purchasing Amari merchandise, whether it's Amari Purple Talk t-shirts, We Funk t-shirts, the Answer t-shirts. We'll discuss that later. But, those things help, for me to bring you this program every week, as well as some other projects, that I would like to have, get off the ground. So one day I won't need that essentially non-essential essential gig, because it's getting old, folks. It's getting tired. But like I said, Dwayne too. And I mean, these are phenomenal books to have on your shelf. The Purple Rain book, the Parade book, the Parade book looks damn good on my shelf next to the other Prince books and other books of musical and non-musical, interest. It looks damn good on the shelf, and it's nice to have that physical copy. Or, at least support by buying if you have tablets or Kindles, that type of thing. I'm not sure how that revenue works. But again, the more that those publishers see that, those type of clicks, whether it is through ebook, tablet, but especially that physical form, then by all means, let's support the brother. Let's do that. So we can get that third book, because I'm anxious to read that third book. Hopefully it's if it's a love sexy era to bat, whatever, if it's the next step after, then yeah, it's the third in the trilogy. Yeah, I'm hyped, because this book is damn good. So let's start talking about this book. But anyway, the link to Dwayne Tudhall's website is in the show notes. So you can purchase a copy there if you don't want to purchase from Amazon. But wherever you purchase a physical copy in which the author gets his share of the revenue and the publishers are happy, we can get that third book. Let's do that. Let's be a Prince Purple musical singularity, and let's support one another. So now let's go ahead and get into the Prince and the Parade Sign of the Times era studio sessions, 1985 to 1986. And, again, this book, I mean, it's definitely next level from the Purple Rain era sessions book, where there's a lot going on. There's a lot more. Where in the Purple Rain era sessions, you have this artist slowly making that transition from underground pop artist to potential superstar, and the makings of that foundation that's going to launch him into that stratosphere. Well, this book talks about what happens once that ship sailed, once it took off the ground, whatever. Kind of one of the first things is the wonderful introduction written by Elton John. To me, out of any artist that's not Prince related, to me, this is one, and probably one of the few that's even left on the planet, to have handpicked to do an introduction for. Maybe even higher on the list would have been Stevie Wonder, but, probably was, hard enough to get Elton John, let alone Stevie Wonder. But if you couldn't get Stevie Wonder to do an introduction, then yeah, Elton John is an acceptable choice to have. And just having a legend's perspective. somebody that's been in the business for decades and has multiple albums, had a classic period during the 70s, kind of had a bit of a comeback in the 80s, but, consistently still makes music up until probably pre-pandemic, still touring. So to have his perspective, it just added a little bit more weight to the introduction. The words were kind, heartfelt. The anecdotes about what I've seen online about Prince ghosting Elton John twice. Out of the 3 times that they've encountered each other over the years, it captures classic Prince. And to me, reading his perspective and then later reading this book, I kind of have the opinion that that's pretty much how Prince dealt with shyness. I know, and that's kind of hard to believe, but when you hear people like Prince, like Michael Jackson, they can be in a room of 2-3 people and just be the quietest, shyest people on earth. But when, you're amongst hundreds of thousands, you're able to perform these miracles on stage and, sound so outspoken and in control and in command. And, too, I've heard a lot of artists, whatever level, say, if they didn't have that little bit of, say, stage fright in the beginning or that little bit of nerves just prior to going on stage, then, something's going to go wrong with it. So to me, that kind of gave me the idea that, hey, it may seem standoffish or aloof, but that's probably just how he dealt with it. Other times it's been said that, hey, that's how Prince can get from one side of the room to the other. It's like he's not dissing you. It's just like, hey, man's got things to do. Time is money. No time for idle chatter. So, yeah, that was cool. And then, later you hear things where, performing with Sting and Ron Wood and things like that too, So he kind of kept again, to keep that mystery, to keep that keep the myth going. Sometimes you got to play that role like that, I guess. And I also enjoyed the author's introduction as well. His take on how listening to a good song is like a journey, and listening to a great song is like a journey with your best friend, and given a lot of the personal recollections that took place within the book. What I enjoyed doing just over the past week, preparing for the show, was kind of going back through the book. And while I was going back through it, based on what era and what tracks I had available, whether official or unofficial, folks, but, going back and listening to those, and especially revisiting Toy Box or revisiting Sheila E.'s album, revisiting those songs, listening to the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe again. And I was kind of listening through this site I just got hip to this past week called Cubos or Cobos. It's expensive as heck. It's like about $21 a month. But I'm on the free trial of it right now, and I think I'll keep it. Because I would say, unlike the other streaming services, and I think Apple's trying to catch up with the whole Dolby Atmos, but I'm still not impressed because I don't have a big Dolby Atmos soundbar in which to play it. They said the best experience is through your headphones. But this Cubos, all the songs have some form of CD quality, whether it's 16-bit, whether it's 24-bit, or just basic CD quality. So the way that I've been listening to music through that it's the best streaming experience that I've had, next to maybe Tidal. Tidal would be a close second as far as listening experiences. But yeah, preparing for the show and then just revisiting the songs, especially through Cubose. I mean, it's like I feel like I'm in the studio, with Prince, with Sheila E., or, with Jill Jones, with The Revolution, whatever's going on. I feel like I'm in Sunset Sound, or I'm in the Galpin Boulevard Home studio, experiencing it just because of what I'm now hearing along with what I'm reading. Like, oh, they use this, Yamaha DX7, keyboard, or the Fairlight, or, there's that Lynn drum machine, and the percussive elements that were overdubbed by Sheila later and things like that. It's a journey. It's an experience. And it also can take you back too, whatever, if you were there in 1986, if you were around 86, 85, 86, 87, as the music was finally being released, it takes you back to that time period and what you were doing and how you were feeling and whatever emotions that it brought up. Or, if you came in later and you went back, so whatever feelings you had the first time you heard a lot of these songs, whether it was in the 90s or 10 years ago or even last week, you're having an experience. And I would urge you to read this book and play your favorite tracks, or whatever chapter you on and whatever's being recorded that day, that month. If you have it, if it's not anything that's in the vault that has yet to come out, and again, if it's not circulating anywhere, then, but whatever you have, just give it a listen and marvel at the genius of, of Prince. Because a lot of this stuff is, 2, 3, 4 songs recorded that day that are just like either they're classic tracks or classic album tracks, B-sides that we've lived with for years, or vault tracks that we've been hearing about or hearing in bad quality for a while, or we're finally getting better quality with what's been coming out lately. It's just amazing that this is one person, or one person that has picked some of the best musicians to help him enhance that vision. It's a really great experience. I mean, I'm glad that this type of a book exists in which to do that. But again, like I said, I like the author's commentary, urging you to listen to it again with a different perspective, new appreciation. Listen again for the first time with new ears. Like I said, it opens with the Purple Rain tour. Or actually, they're in the middle of the Purple Rain tour. So Purple Rain tour has been going on for like 2 or 3 months at this point. So we start off with like January 1st in Dallas, January 3rd of 1985 in Atlanta. There were some shows where Prince had set aside about 485 seats at $50 a head, to which that money was donated to Marva Collins' West Side Preparatory School in Chicago. I know I first heard of Marva Collins, this is back probably like early 80s, maybe 82, 83, maybe even as early as 81. But there was I think a CBS TV movie, and I think, if I remember correctly, I want to say Marla Gibbs played Martha Collins. I could be wrong, but if anybody that listens to Amari Purple Talk that remembers that TV movie, just go ahead and correct me in the comments. But her story in really making a difference with the youth in Chicago by creating this school. And it was it was an uphill battle. You don't get TV movies made out of you if it was that simple. But this was the earliest that a lot of us were hearing about, Prince as a philanthropist. A lot of it kind of got lost in the shuffle between like the We Are the World fiasco, just a lot of other Prince image things or things like that. But also, too, he kept a lot of stuff quiet. That was one of the first things that started bubbling to the surface. But then there were other shows that are mentioned in this tour that were for different charities, in which he requested, hey, I don't want my name out there. I'm just doing this. Keep it low key, keeping it humble. So a lot of this, we didn't hear about until after he passed, about a difference he was making. But at the same time, we would see things like, the Baltimore concert, Black Lives Matter, Freddie Gray, that situation, we started seeing that. So we knew, and a lot of through his song lyrics, which, again, that's the best way we're ever going to know who Prince is. It's mainly through the music. And what a book like this does, it kind of creates a sort of guideline in which you get to know him. Because, okay, this event, it influenced this type of a song, based on whoever was in the studio, whether it was Susan Rogers, whether it was The Revolution, Shirley, whoever, this is what he was reacting to. Or sometimes, certain songs like Old Friends for Sale, Wally, sometimes he was feeling like, oh, I'm revealing too much. But what he was willing to share that would get released, or it would get put in the vault until needed, or to be revealed when necessary. That's the way to do it. But like I said, this book gives you more of a guideline, so that way there's not as much guesswork, as we're listening. I guess either way is fine, but I actually prefer this way. If we're never going to get the full picture, we're never going to get 100% or 360 degrees of knowledge of Prince. But when you have a book like this that focuses on just the music, and when the discussion is centered on the music and what influenced it, then that does kind of get us a little bit closer to him than what we would have had at any, point in the last few decades. But again, like I said, we're in the middle of the Purple Rain tour, and this is the beginning of the transition, if it hasn't pretty much already happened, from, just whatever, funk dude, rock dude, got a little cult following, now he's crossed over, thanks to Purple Rain, to the mainstream. So it's gone from, 80 to 90 to 100% black in the audience to, either half and half, or depending on where he was traveling, now it's 50, 60, 70% white audience. Then it's a thing of, these are people that, okay, they're screaming at Prince this week. Next week, they'll scream at Bruce Springsteen. Whoever's going to be big the week after that, that's who they're going to scream at. And, we'll fast forward to 2004, and it's like, we'll get excited. Oh, Prince musicology tour. Whoopee. And they'll be like, oh, I didn't know Prince still made music. So there's that sort of, you're gaining massive fame and popularity, but now we're starting to see the consequences of the cost of fame. So we're starting to get a picture that actually, to me, the best illustration of that journey, better than any biography, and there's quite a few biographies that are really good, But to me, again, because the focus is on the music or the events in his life, the turning points, you get a clearer picture of, oh, this is where things change. And it won't be the first time. We'll have many more eras, that we'll be exposed to. And hopefully Dwayne will document those as well. But there's so many, this is probably the first major transformation or the first major turning point in which, it's not just this, cool little band, with a few cool records that only a few people know about. Now again, like I said, it's this mainstream thing, and these are these people that watch Entertainment Tonight, or they're reading the National Enquirer and whatever. And again, like I said, it's a plateau that Prince definitely wanted to achieve, but once he kind of got to that top of the mountain and saw what was coming with it, then it was like, okay, in some areas, let me pull back. In other areas, it's changed him. It's like it's changed him. And when you're dealing with those massive sums of money, it also started changing the people around him for good, bad, or indifferent. And, it caused a lot of tensions that sort of play out over the next year or so. But again, like I said, that first month alone, there's the recording of the Romance 1600 album, because he's on tour. Really, the only person he could work with would be Sheila. The family was still in Minneapolis. Maserati, I think, was still in Minneapolis. So this was the only project that he could turn his attention to. And again, just listening to how that album, or reading about how that album was put together. I've always enjoyed it, but, it made me revisit it, because I think, there was a point where I was listening to both, Romance 1600. I was probably listening to the family album more. But then it got to a point where I kind of got distracted, So it was those two albums. Even Morris Day's Color of Success was like heavy rotation. And then I kind of get to late 85 and just kind of got a little bit distracted. By that time, I think Sheila's album kind of dropped off. The Family, by the beginning of 86, High Fashion was dropped as a single. So it was still kind of fresh in my brain as far as radio. But then, we all know what happened while that was going on in the beginning of 86. So, but again, it's just amazing the amount of musical genius, on tour, when most people probably just getting that rest to get ready to get on the plane or the bus and go off to the next city. He's off looking for recording studios, or having Susan Rogers keep a Rolodex of studios to where, okay, it's after the show. Bam, let's go into the studio and crank out within, I think, with just less than 3 weeks, to crank out an album that sounds as, that Romance 1600, and it sounds great. You got Love Bazaar, Musically Toy Box, Dear Michelangelo, Sister Fate, all that's just, it's amazing. And of course, Prince did play all the instruments, but that's not saying that Sheila E. was weak as a musician. It was just easier, quicker for him to do the bass, the drums, the guitars, the keyboards. But, she added, the icing with the percussion on a lot of those tracks. And he also gave her the kind of freedom to mix some things, like Pop Life being an example, on her own, or she would have a couple of tracks that were hers, that were strictly hers, that would either end up on the album or end up on a B-side. So again, we all know Prince did everything, and sometimes we know that he didn't need these people per se, but like I said, these people weren't weak that he picked, to work with. They brought something unique to the table, music wise or vocally or personality wise. And I mean, this is just the month of January. I mean, this would be like a 10-hour show to try to really cover the whole book. So I know one last thing about Sheila E.'s album, Bedtime Story. It was a track that I liked, but now knowing the story behind it and the inspiration behind it, I'm like, let me listen to this again. Okay, so yeah, and it's relatable. We've all had that type of situation in our lives where you have someone to talk to like that, and you talk for some hours on the phone and things like that. So I mean, that's it's relatable, but to turn that and articulate it into a song, even though it wasn't picked as a single, like I said, I enjoyed it. To me, I think it's kind of, if I had a top 3 of favorite Sheila E. ballads, that would definitely be in the top 3. Especially more so now. Like I said, just when you get an extra bit of energy when you know that this wasn't anything that was just knocked off. Sometimes you can knock off a tune, but there's still an inspiration behind it. It just means that it was fleeting. Like you just really got hyped and excited about writing this song. And then by the time you finished it, but you captured the energy of it. You captured the emotion of it. And then there are songs, if you're really good at songwriting, that, it's like, like writing for a commercial. Like, okay, this is what this is about. Bam, you knock it off. And, it could be good. It could accidentally be great. Or it's just like, yeah, that's just album filler. So like I said, in order to keep this from being a 10-hour show and to kind of keep this from being a part 2, what I decided to do was make this not quite a spoiler review per se, but first discuss the takeaway moments that I consider sort of my favorite takeaway moments from the book and my sort of vault wish list. Now, so starting with the takeaway moments. So, no real particular order or anything, but kind of one of the first for me as a bit of an eye-opener was that Prince had more input on Maserati's album than I actually thought. I thought that, and of course, again, yes, David Z and Brown Mark, they both, it's Brown Mark's band, his project. He was grooming them, he was producing them. And, David Z was there to lend a hand as well. And I thought pretty much, I would say all of the songs except for 100 Miles an Hour, because that's sort of how the legend kind of went. It's like, he was going to give them Kiss. He took it back and gave them 100 Miles an Hour. Then, years later, we discover that Jerk Out was intended for them. And that didn't work out. Hence, why I guess 100 Miles per Hour was the only track on the record with that. But yeah, I thought that basically, that Prince didn't have as much input on it, other than I know we kind of figured, or we kind of knew that he did have a hand in the way that they looked, as far as the album cover, as far as how they looked on the album cover. That was sort of Prince's idea. But reading this, there was more input where, it wasn't like other situations where you find out that, Prince wrote and played every instrument on the song. It was a thing to where he was being more of a mentor in some cases, where, for example, Strawberry Lover, that track, it had another title. Prince, during that period, there's a lot of songs. Strawberry, was the recurring motif in a lot of songs. So one, the title was, I think, Fear the Shadow or something. And then it was changed to Strawberry Lover, which was Prince's idea. Or, he would give suggestions on a couple of lyrics. He might have played some guitar on a track or two. So it was like, oh, okay. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. So to me, it's whatever songs are listed in the book, it's because Prince had a hand in it in some way, shape, or form, and not necessarily just, where it's one of those things where he's doing everything. It's either he helped out on a lyric or two, or made a couple of suggestions on what to change, did some maybe vocal arranging, that type of thing. So that was pretty good. Just kind of the origins of the Maserati album. So it opened up a bit. Another takeaway is that, as much as the estate or Michael Howe wishes to avoid repetition, hence why we didn't get certain songs on the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe feeling like they're already on Crystal Ball, or they're already on this record, or Join Repetition's already on Graffiti Bridge. Well, you're going to have some repetition. It's going to be inevitable. And the reason why I say that, it's because part of Prince's sort of modus operandi is that, there's always new songs being cranked out, but sometimes he'll go back into the vault, take out a couple of tracks. It's like, oh, well, this might fit, that might fit, like Could Never Take the Place of Your Man, recorded way back in 79. Pulled that out and was like, okay, there's something there, but then he re-recorded it. And hence you get what you hear on the album. And then there were several songs that was in consideration for Parade that were like that. Songs considered for Dream Factory, songs considered for Jill Jones' album, where it's like these tracks that were done in 81, 82, 83, or whatever. And either he's adding elements or he's re-recording it all together. We already do have some repetition, like Teacher, Teacher. There's a version that's on 1999. There's a version that's on the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe. So I think as they start to really catalog the vault, as we probably get more defined, probably Super Deluxe editions in the future, then yeah, I think it's going to come to a point where you're just going to have to include those tracks. I'll kind of discuss that a little bit more a little bit later on, but yeah, it's going to be some repetition. Another takeaway is, like I mentioned earlier, this was sort of a transition for Prince. Again, going from just, from star to superstar. And again, going to a level that very few artists have. Never mind who, say, let's put it this way, you have Cameo, you have Roger and Zapp. And as funky and as great as they are, they were never on, fame-wise, on that level as a Michael Jackson or Prince or Whitney Houston. That's kind of going where few artists ever go before. And yeah, again, there's going to be some effects, some positive, some negative. That type of level of fame, it comes with a cost. And it's a cost that none of us, whether we're doing a podcast, whether we're in the Prince musical singularity or any other artist's musical singularity as a fan base, no matter how much joy is given to us, That's a level that we will never understand. There needs to be college classes taught about Elvis, and college classes that need to be taught about Michael Jackson and what that level of fame can do to you. But again, what this book does, it points out one of the first major turning points. And with Prince, what I call this is an evolution. Because, yeah, where he was in, Up to Dirty Mind was one level. Where he was at 1999 was a different level. Purple Rain took 10, 15, 20 more steps up that level. And, everything that has gone on since then, up until April 21st of 2016, everything was an evolution. And possibly, more than any other book, shows the biggest evolution. And, you forget too, these are, he was in his 20s. What in your 20s versus your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It's an evolution. It should be a process of growth. And again, you're in your 20s, you're handed that heavy amount of fame. Yeah, you're going to make some mistakes. Like, hey, cool. If you didn't want to participate in We Are the World, yeah, you should have gone into hiding immediately and just stayed low key. But it's like, nah, I'm going to go party. And even that wasn't so bad. Even if you could have gotten away with it quietly, it was just because you were that level of fame where cameras are going to follow you, just like any episode of TMZ now. Folks are going to be following you. And it's like, hey, aren't you supposed to be a weirdo? Hey, what's going on here? Prince is out partying. Now you just got caught in this lie, and there are consequences. And, like I said, there were, little mistakes like that, but those were mistakes that could cost you. Because, again, in the eyes of public opinion, perception is reality. And then, again, you're at that level of fame, and then there's people that's selling you out. And sometimes it's not your enemies, it's the people in your own court that, try to bring you down. And a lot of that was going on. So this puts in better detail just because of the timelines that are involved. It puts a better perspective on that period, better than any other book. Because again, with other biographies, you're narrowing that down to just maybe a paragraph or two, or sometimes often just a few sentences. And while you get the gist of it, because in that case, the narrative is the entire story beginning to end. Here, because we're documenting almost like a diary, day to day, and how that snowballed as the weeks and the months went on. So you can kind of see that spiraling out of hand. By the time you get to, say, the release of Under the Cherry Moon and things like that, then you see where sort of the court of public opinion, there's a lot, in a public relations standpoint that you have to fight against, or you have to turn that tide around. It didn't affect the ticket sales as far as performance, because a lot of shows were still selling out. Parade was still a really good album. It's one of my favorites. Kiss was a hit single. So that did help as well. But like I said, the effects on him and those around him, the success, the mistakes, the growing pains, the gist of it is that being Prince ain't easy. And I know it wasn't easy for him. And he's the one going through it. He's being Prince. So again, like I said, we kind of have to separate how good the music makes us feel and understand the blood, sweat, tears, and nervous systems it takes to bring us that type of joy. And, maintain living your best life at the same time. The other takeaway is what I call Prince the player. We've gotten that, whether we've seen it in magazines, whether we get it in albums, whether we've gotten a lot of extra details in other books. But what makes this volume different from, biographies and things of that nature is that we also get the perspective of the women involved. And, granted, with hindsight, there was a lot that, they probably shouldn't have had to put up with, or, I know if that would have been, if that would have been me, sisters would have been knocking on the door like, what's this? It's like, no, you can't, normal mortals can't even have a friend, without whoever you're with getting like, hey, who's this? What's this about? What's going on here? No, this isn't a good look. What's up? So, it's like, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, you're looking at this and like, oh, yeah, you go, dude, yeah. As an adult now, this isn't quite the PC thing to do. And like I said, they should have, if it was any one of us brothers, we would have been like, yeah, we would have had something handed to us, pretty much. But, like I said, it was great to kind of see their viewpoint. They're not just objects. They're human beings that were emotionally invested. And, the difference in how each of them dealt with that emotional investment. And that's the thing we have to remember, too, as part of the Prince musical singularity. These weren't groupies or anything like that. These were, people with talent, with intelligence, with brains, that again, they were emotionally invested. Some understood what was happening and they knew where the line was. And then there were some that it's like, you can only deal with this for so long and you have to go live your best life at that point. So to get that human perspective, as women that have feelings, emotionally invested, like, hey, okay, I'm in this, on this record, or okay, we know he's engaged to Susanna here, so this is the line, this I'm gonna step off. And then there was some that like didn't even know what was going on too. There was sort of that going on as well. But like I said, where the other books, it just follows sort of, well, Prince was on the tour bus and had Vanity here, and meanwhile Jill was here, and so was here, and so was back home in Minneapolis or in LA or whatever. It was refreshing to hear the human side of it and how they actually felt. And that again brings a lot of weight, much better than, again, like I said, most of the biographies. And again, this is all centered around the creation of the music. So while you have their perspective, you also get what he was feeling or what he was thinking, or you have to decode some of the messages. Some of the lyrics are like, oh, that was about so-and-so, so-and-so, or that was inspired by so-and-so, so-and-so. So, I mean, hey, it's a very interesting book because, like I said, it takes you on the journey. It immerses you in that experience. You're in the studio. You're in the Galpin Road house when probably a lot of these discussions and or arguments were taking place. And like I said, it's, you can't get mad. Like I said, we've all been we've been the dumper and we've been the dumpee. So all the emotional weight that comes with that. We're just reading about somebody famous going through that as well, and being an artist at the same time. That adds some extra can add some extra drama to the equation as well. The other takeaway is it also gives you a better perspective of the breakup of the revolution. You get both sides told in this book. You get a better understanding of Prince's motivation because, again, he's at that superstar level. And Under the Cherry Moon isn't working out. Parade is doing well. But then you're also looking at it like, well, I'm the one that signed the Warner Brothers contract. And yeah, while I love and respect these people that I'm working with, and yeah, while I'm giving a couple of them kind of, a little bit of free reign to here, remix this song, or here, put your touch on it. Is that really what I want? You have that. And then again, you have that sort of backlash, whether it's a thing of mainstream. I'm going to say mainstream black artists, because like I said, when I was walking the planet in 84, 85, 86, me and about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other people I know were dropping down on Prince product, whether it was the Parade album, whether it was Madhouse, whether it was Sheila E's album, and at the same time, people that weren't part, Jesse Johnson, we were supporting that. Sometimes it felt like we were the only ones buying it, where it's like, hey, listen, this is great. Who? I just want to listen to Cameo. Like, but, whatever was happening, sort of pre Janet Jackson era, whatever was going on, we were supporting that, so with, I would say, mainstream Black America, or it could have just been the press too, but mainstream Black was feeling like, oh, Prince ain't delivering the funk no more. And it's like, no, Parade's great. Come on, Romance 1600 is great. The Family, it's great. It's funky. You trust us. But it was kind of a fall off from that. Then on the pop mainstream side, you had this thing of, oh, he snubbed We Are the World, and oh, he's so weird, he's so this, he's so that, and oh, he didn't make Purple Rain 2, or both movie and album. Oh, we don't want to be bothered with it. Oh, forget it. So getting to that level, even though he didn't want to maintain that level, but still, the backlash wasn't helping either. It's one thing to make a choice and scale back, but to scale back in the middle of people now hating on you, yeah, that's an uphill battle. And instead of, like I said, you get both sides. I could see his side of it, where it's like, well, wait a minute, I'm the one that signed the Warner Brothers contract. All of this is on my shoulders to make, break, or if there's something, bro, I got to fix this. Or if this doesn't work, I'm the one taking the heat from it. And then I get the revolution side of it, because they were sort of promised this, I wouldn't say like an equality, but they were feeling like the Beatles at one point. They were feeling like, oh, well, we can be the McCartney to his Lennon, or we can be at least the George Harrison to the equation. They didn't realize that they were just kind of regulated to being just side people. And then again, this is his band. It's his idea. Like, okay, well, you guys are cool, but now I want to bring in some horns because I want to be funky. We can do this experimental stuff, but let's not forget the funk. And they're kind of looking at it like they've gone from being this little Fleetwood Mac type of a thing to now it's the JBs. And, that made them feel a certain way. But, also too, without maybe the right communication, or maybe something was misunderstood, you can see his wheels turning like, oh, this is what Lisa and Wendy are asking for. Oh, well, they must want to leave. Okay, fine. I don't need them. I'm helping them out and giving them tracks to work on, and they're acting like they want to leave. And then there's their side of it, like, no, they didn't want to leave, but there was a lot of drama. And then, two, you got this sort of, workplace relationship going on with him and Susanna, and then who's related to one of your coworkers. Yeah, there's a lot of conflicts of interest, and a lot of that was, you get a lot of perspective on what was going on. So again, it's nice to have both sides of the equation instead of, where other books is like, and then Prince broke up the revolution. Now we're on the sign of the times. So, so those are my takeaways from the book. So now we're going to end this with my vault wish list. And there's a lot of material that I feel, they're going to end up the best of it anyway. The stuff that's closest to being considered finished songs. It makes better sense now. Give or take one or two songs. It makes better sense now, the vault tracks that were picked for the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe. Because basically by the time you get to March, really roughly about, March of 1986, Parade is pretty much finished. And it's, it's been sequenced. Maybe there was a song change here and there, but it's finished. So basically anything that is now being recorded, say March 1986 forward, was probably for, what ended up being Sign of the Times. There's 3-4 albums, that were kind of, he was brainstorming about that. Yeah, he was thinking of the next record regardless, whether it was Dream Factory, whether it was Camille, whether it was Crystal Ball, whether it was Sign of the Times. There was always songs in circulation. So it made better sense, a lot of the tracks that were included, even though they felt very revolution heavy. I know I was a critic of that number of episodes ago. Either before it came out or slightly after it came out. But now, thanks to this book, I do have a clearer picture of why these songs were picked. I do still wish that there were about 3 or 4 songs that they could have included in this or swapped out in favor of some songs that were recorded just slightly before Parade was even being worked on, that I felt like that should work better on a Parade Super Deluxe edition. But like I said, it makes better sense why what they picked works. So for my personal wish list, one track in particular, it's a song called Rough, and the eye opener on this one. Now remember, the spoilers, this is a spoiler discussion, so hopefully you've read the book and you've come back and you've listened to the last hour of this episode. So this track says that it has a vocal with Alexander O'Neal. This was a track that was done, I think it was 1981 or 1980, late 1980 or early into 81. So, are there other tracks that have Alexander O'Neal's voice on it? This opens up a whole new realm of possibilities when considering especially the First Time album. I think that Rhino Records sort of rushed the ball just to get something out and say, oh, this is the Time 40th anniversary. I think that even though I pre-ordered it, and I pre-ordered it before Morris's quick dissatisfaction with it and the fact that they reached out to him to help resolve this problem, I do feel that what's being presented is a disservice to the time, the concept. And like I said, this track opens up a realm of possibilities. Even if it's just this one track, there's a way you can do, and I would say mainly with this first album. I don't think you could really do it with the other two. But what makes this interesting is that you have an opportunity to sonically really put the history of this band into context and really put to rest, this sort of ridiculous thing where people just automatically go, well, Prince did everything, and then who? Again, this dude didn't pick any weak people to execute his vision. This was his biggest competition even before he got a record deal. And the lead singer was the absolute best drummer in his band before he got a record deal that had to compete with the other best band in Minneapolis. So, forget about, and obviously you've probably come in after Purple Rain and you really don't get a gist of the history with it. But what I feel would work better for the first time album is if you have, in addition to the original album itself, include these, if it's just this one song, Rough, with Alexander O'Neal's vocals, or if there's other tracks with Alexander O'Neal's vocals, and if there's vocals with what we now call Prince originals, if you have those, make that a super deluxe and you document this history properly. You get Dwayne Tudor on it to put together the liner notes for it, as this was recorded here, and here. Let Morris tell his story. Hey, if you can get Alex to tell his side of it as well, get him in on it. I mean, give a good oral history in the liner notes. And really give people that weren't around in 1981 what this band was supposed to be, what this concept was supposed to be, and include whatever live material that they have from 1981, any video that you have that can work for 1981, and you will see that, yes, while it's Prince's vision, it was also Prince and Morris's vision as well. And it ended up with Morris being the best one to execute that vision. But again, as far as picking the band, we all know Prince is a great musician and he can go toe to toe. But I thought it was absolute brilliance. You reach out, because it's like, yeah, this was a band that when you were in high school, 1 week you were the best band. The next week, Flight Time was the best band. Everybody had to up their game each and every time they went on stage, which was brilliantly executed in Purple Rain. You get the gist of that. But the reality of it, yeah, he could have just said, hey, these guys, my competition, I don't want to sign them. No, Morris, you can't have them as your backup band. No, let me pick the people to be your backup band. But he didn't do that. He reached out because he respected, whether it was Morris's idea to pick them. Prince, at the end of the day, had to co-sign on it. He had to sign off on it and approve it. So, yeah, I would say somewhere down the line, it's too late. I mean, if you can get away with quickly putting something together for Christmas, but I would say this, next year, you do those time albums, their reissues, and you give them the justice they deserve. And the way to set the tone for it would be to reach out to the estate and work on, like I said, if there's something that has Alexander O'Neal's vocal on it, put that on there. If there's a disc that has his vocals on it, put that on there. Have the original album, have Prince's originals, and you make those liner notes swing. Like I said, get Dwayne on the case, get Morris on and interview him, or have him write something about it, and you fully illustrate what Prince's actual vision would be. And, you know, let's just stop hating on the associated acts for being associated acts. And if somebody did have an axe to grind, just remember, it's show business. It's the music business. It's not the friend business. And granted, yeah, he reached out to his friends and he's helped them along the way. But again, not everybody's cut out to be that superstar. There's only room for few people on that level. Just be grateful that these people can still get on a stage and entertain you, that they can still put out a record, you know, and generate some income doing what they love doing, and that they're not dependent on, you know, like the rest of us with an essentially non-essential gig. You know, most of you, yeah, you living your best life, you're doing whatever, but you know, hey, I'm gonna be on my Jay and Silent Bob. It's like, don't you ever say a bad word about Morris Day and the Time. So that's my soapbox. But yeah, this eye opener, that's an idea. So again, if anybody has the ear of the estate, you know, I wouldn't be mad if y'all took that off of my pre-order list and say, hey, you know, 6 months from now, we're going to come out with the definitive super deluxe version of the debut of the Time. Do it properly. 40th anniversary. Do it right. You know, do it upright. And give everybody their props. Like I said, this, yeah, it is Prince's vision. This is the way it will fully illustrate that this is his vision, and these were the people that were qualified to execute it. So, okay, I'm off my Jay and Silent Bob rant for right now. So I'm going to move on to the next item on my vault wish list. The Flesh album. That needs to be a standalone. It needs to be either, you can do it as a sort of mainstream release, but I would say it would probably work better for Record Store Day, and then just have it available later on down the line for anybody else that wants it after us diehards get our copy. But the Flesh album, with Eric Leeds supervising the remix and the remaster. And that was a bit of an eye-opener. I knew that amongst the collectors, you know, it's like, oh, there's these set of jams, but I thought that the fan base sort of compiled this. Then I didn't realize that this was a potential album in itself. And what I didn't know was that Eric Leeds, you know, Prince gave him all the tracks. This is sort of very pre-Madhouse, that Prince gave Eric the tracks to say, hey, you know, try to make something out of this. You know, sequence it, remix what you want, add what you want to it, take out what you want, and make an album. And Eric had some ideas, you know. Basically, vinyl was still the dominant physical media, although, you know, CDs at that time was slowly catching up. They were slowly catching on. So he said, hey, you know, because vinyl was the dominant physical media, this was the sequence of songs based on, hey, this is side 1 of the record. Now you flip it over. This is side 2 of the record. Now, if it was a CD, I would have arranged the songs this way. So I want to see that. Actually, now that I've said that, yeah, I want to see the album version. All this supervised by Eric Leeds, you know, and have, you know, Susan come in and be a part of that too. But come in, do the vinyl version with the sequence that he had in mind. And then you have the CD version that has the sequence he had in mind for the CD, and sell it as whatever, what they call it now, a deluxe edition, where you buy the vinyl and you get the CD along with it, or you can get the vinyl separately, the CD separately, however you want to roll with it. But it would be good to, like, cool, okay, I'm listening to the vinyl and it's one way. Now I want to go listen to the CD and it's a totally different sequence. The songs are in a different order. So, yeah, I'm hyped for that. So somebody, again, if you have the ear of the estate, if Michael Howell is quietly listening, hey, just give me an advance copy to review. That's it. I don't need any money or anything for the idea. Just give me some copies to review and we cool. But I want to see that idea happen. Because, I had the list written down, but I won't go into it. You read it in the book, the way he had it configured. But I definitely want to hear that project, probably more than any other project, with the exception of this next one, which would be a Jill Jones deluxe edition, both again vinyl and CD, and have her be the curator of this. You have the original album, but then have her pick the tracks that didn't make it on, minus, the B-sides, of course, include the B-sides, 12-inch extended versions and all of that. But a lot of the tracks that didn't make it, that she felt were good enough to be a part of it, but ended up not being a part of it, or whatever, have her curate the thing, have her create, have a hand in the artwork of the deluxe edition. Have her included on the liner notes, to discuss that, and whatever remixing, remastering, just have her be the curator of it. Like, hey, we always wanted my voice to sound like this, and do that. So again, that's another big one. That, along with, I'd say, The Time, maybe Madhouse, The Family to a certain extent. Those would be the sort of, deluxe albums which you would have to have more, not just the, extra bonus tracks, but the liner notes, to really punctuate the significance of these albums, the artists involved, to learn about the artists involved. Like I said, those of us that were walking the planet, in 86, 87, we dropped our hard-earned money on the record, on the CD or on the cassette, and it's had an impact on our lives. And, like I said, for Prince to pick these people to say, like, cool, this is Jill Jones, hey, I was a fan from the Tina Marie days, and it was nice to see, on the 1999 album. It was nice to see her in the 1999 video and the Automatic video and everything else. To see her in Purple Rain too. Like, oh, well, this was somebody that was on the up, kind of coming up. And then her album, to me, I think it should have gotten better attention. You'll get that in the book as well. But, still, I'm happy it came out when it did come out and enjoyed it. Because, yeah, she deserves some definite shine, but like I said, sometimes, you hanging around your best friends, or, if you were musicians and you were in a band and you were those type of musicians, that it wasn't just about what was happening on the mainstream. You were checking out albums that hardly anybody bought, or obscure stuff, or you were deep dive fans, like especially if you were a Prince fan, then the Madhouse was a deep dive. Jill Jones was a deep dive. That was a big transition too, where The Time was more high profile. Vanity 6 was more high profile. Sheila E. was more high profile. Family was kind of in between because they didn't really get to take off like they should have. But after that, everything else became a deep dive. Madhouse was a deep dive. Jill Jones was a deep dive. Maserati was, again, kind of in between. Over time, they became a deep dive. But as they were happening, they were getting some radio play, some play on video sold and stuff like that. But yeah, but I think that Jill, like The Time, deserves that sort of extra special attention when it comes to the liner notes. Madhouse is another one altogether. Kind of the same thing. It deserves some context, but it's a different sort of concept as opposed to, because I think with Madhouse, if you're just going to spotlight Eric Leeds, and you have to include the Times Squared album along with it, and kind of get the, again, the perspective of what these sessions were, what these albums were meant to be, and sort of show the newbies that this was all the fuss was about. Again, when we were walking around in 86, 87, this is what the fuss was about. Like I said, to us, it was deep dive. I know when I moved to California in late 87, 88, there was more radio play for Jill's album there in Northern California. Instead of, St. Louis had got virtually no radio play there at all. But it was nice to see that, they were trying in California to kind of get that out there. But, when you go on the Prince.orgs and any other fan sites or social media, and you hear us, sort of championing these albums, they're classic to us. This is what the fuss was about. And I think that, again, this is what Prince's vision was. And this is what he felt she needed to have a functional, quality album. And like I said, a lot of us did embrace it. And, and it deserves, it deserves some attention in hindsight as well. Because like I said, it should have come out a year and a half earlier. I think it would have been bigger. I think it would have been a more higher profile and kind of put her on that next level. But in the words of Morpheus, what happened and couldn't have happened any other way. So here we are in 2021. And I say, yeah, it's time to give it sort of that cult status, sort of a broader sense of the Prince musical singularity beyond those of us that were there. This is an album that deserves its shine. So hopefully we'll see that happen again. Talk to the estate. I don't want any purple ducats. I don't need any purple croutons. Just, give me a advanced copy or something and I'll review it. Or not. I'm still going to pay my purple ducats for it anyway. So that's that. The next item on my vault wish list is that Dream Factory, Camille, and Crystal Ball deserve Record Store Day releases. And again, we mentioned earlier about repetition. And, I'm sorry, for me, like, I've got a lot of Jimi Hendrix stuff that the Hendrix estate has put out, mainly on CD. I only have one vinyl record, but CD and some documentaries, physical media and digital. And when it comes to the albums, the compilations, the live albums that have been released, yeah, there's stuff, of course, Purple Haze, that's a given. Of course, that's going to be on a lot of live stuff. But to me, the one track that's pretty consistent is that for a lot of stuff, both live and compilation form, studio compilation form, there's a lot of Hear My Train a Comin', a lot of versions of that. There's a lot of versions of Stone Free. There's a lot of versions of Freedom. And you're going to get that. And to the general fan base, I don't hear anybody complaining like, oh my God, there's another version of Freedom. Oh, I don't want to, oh, another version of Hear My Train a Comin'. No, it's just like, oh, there's another version of Hear My Train a Comin'. And trust me, I play it like I've never heard it before. Because, I mean, there are, like, to me, my favorite is from the Fillmore East, one of the nights on Fillmore East. But if I hear a studio version of it, then it's like, oh, heck, I even love the acoustic version of it. So, I mean, it's a damn good song. So, and again, with Prince, you're going to get that. But there's a lot of completists. You know, we've been waiting decades for an opportunity to officially have those. And I mean, yeah, it's great. We're in the age of streaming. And yeah, you've heard me go on about Tidal and Cubos and, you know, heck, Apple Music's trying to step up its game a little bit. You know, that's cool and you can make a playlist. But before there was even streaming, you know, we were always dreaming of a time whenever some of this stuff would get released, that to have an actual physical copy of Dream Factory, to have a physical copy of Crystal Ball, or have all of the tracks intended for Crystal Ball to actually be on a Sign of the Times Super Deluxe Edition. So since we don't have that in that particular case, then, like I said, this works just for Record Store Day. You know, there's stuff that just comes out on Record Store Day, and there's only 5,000 copies or 10,000 copies of it, or however many copies. But make it available. Going back to Hendrix again, there were albums that were done after Hendrix had passed. They were sort of put together and mixed by this one cat. I can't think of his name at the moment. But this was a dude that Hendrix did say in his lifetime, he didn't want this dude near his music. Because I guess he knew that, yeah, this dude's going to take my music and mess it up. But after Hendrix passed, this cat got a hold of the tracks and came out with, I think, like Rainbow Bridge, Cry of Love. There's another album that came out after Hendrix passed, like real early 70s stuff. And, you know, to the fan base, they didn't know that. You know, they didn't know like, oh, this dude, oh, Hendrix didn't want this dude messing with his music. No, they bought it because it's like they're Hendrix fans. And it's like Hendrix is no longer on the planet. So it's like, you know, just like how we are now. Whatever the estate drops, we go pick it up because we're fans. Well, the Hendrix estate, you know, they've had the official rights to all of Jimmy's music since 1996. And they've been putting out exactly what they've wanted to put out. Stuff that they felt like, okay, this is closer to what Jimmy intended as far as what his final album would have been. Everything else is just compilations of stuff they find in the vault that they've cataloged and decided, oh, this will be a box set. This will make a nice compilation of songs about this particular era, things of that nature. Stuff we'll eventually get as Prince fans. But the last, I forget when these actually came out, but they did eventually, you know, here it is 35, 40 years later, they eventually decided to release those first few, you know, posthumous albums with the same mixes that this cat did that, you know, again, Jimmy would have been against this dude, you know, handling his music like that because of the fan base. Because there are people that, you know, just like how we have fans that like, oh, I just love the 90s stuff. Oh, I just love the stuff from 2000 or whatever. We have fans like that. There are fans that are like, well, I can't get into this first rays of the new Rising Sun. I don't care if it is what Jimmy intended. I don't like it. This is what I heard when I was, 15 in 1972 buying Cry of Love. That's what they're thinking. Like, this is how I'm used to hearing Jimmy. That's what they're thinking. So we're kind of the same way, a lot of us, when it comes to this era, that, well, Camille was sequenced and there were copies pressed at the plant and they have serial numbers. We want to get our hands on that. Yeah, granted, yeah, the majority of those tracks, yeah. We've got them, whether we've had them on a certain CD or something, and we can burn our own CD. I mean, I've burned my own CD of the Camille album. That's all well and good, but to have a physical copy of it with the Paisley Park logo and just do it on Record Store Day, it's like, fine, if you don't want to do it as a mainstream release, cool. But there are people in the fan base that will drop their purple croutons on the Camille record. I'm one of them. Same with, maybe I'm more Crystal Ball than I am Dream Factory, but I wouldn't mind having Dream Factory. I love Susanna's cover for it. That would be nice to have that both on CD and vinyl, to have that in your hands and to pull it out and it says Prince and the Revolution on it and you play it and you get to hear those songs in that order. It's the music business, and I get it. You might not want to go mainstream, or you're thinking now that, oh, well, we don't want to be too repetitive. But I think if you do certain things for Record Store Day, those things will make it special. So it's not like you're just trying to just churn out product. You're doing something that, yeah, the diehards are going to make that effort. We showed that with The Truth, with Record Store Day. Like I said, I feel like I'm Charlie Brown and I only got a rock, but I'm also waiting for that because, my little hometown here, I don't want to say anything negative, but like I said, I'm, checking around and it was, wasn't going to stand out in the hot sun and come up empty, which exactly that would have happened. So found out in advance that, they ain't have no copies of The Truth in any way, shape, or form. So I'm like, okay, well, cool. I'm going to just sit this out. I wanted to support my local record store, but I'm going to support a local record store. So I, jumped online and, use my online skills to, finally secure copies online, also networking with a few people on social media. Like, oh, okay, they have it. Cool. Or I can go through this. Cool. I'll go through this site. And eventually I'll get my Record Store Day stuff. And once I kind of get it all, then I'll do a sort of video about the Record Store Day stuff. But like I said, we'll show up for that. We'll support it. Or even if, like in the case of myself, where it's like, okay, my hometown didn't represent, but I'm willing to find a record store that once Record Store Day is done, that now they have some copies left and they're willing to sell it online, then, hey, that local record store is going to get my purple croutons. And then my local one, I'm just going to have to support y'all another way. There's a couple of things I did see. They weren't part of Record Store Day, but kind of once I kind of recoup from this week, then, I'm, help y'all out a little bit. But with that said, like I said, those three albums, like I said, I would just love to just have, just on Record Store Day. I know Crystal Ball will be a tough one because it'll be 3 CDs, but I'm sorry. There's a George Harrison All Things Must Pass 50th anniversary, and that original album in itself was 3 albums. And we kind of live in that age now. We're in that super deluxe mode anyway. So just treat Crystal Ball like it was some kind of super deluxe something, and you could just put those 3 albums out. And again, we'll have our purple ducats ready. I know you'll have it at a pretty decent price for 3 LPs, and it's not like you haven't released 3 up. Remember Emancipation, you still got Crystal Ball somewhere in there. So go ahead, drop it. You get my purple croutons. I'm with it. So the next one is what was called the Paisley Jam. And that included tracks called Madrid, Slaughterhouse, which I'm sure not to be confused with Slaughterhouse from the NPG Music Club version, Breathless, Just Can't Stop, Run Amok, 12 Keys, High Colonic, Mobile. These tracks kind of along the same lines as the Flesh sessions, but I thought it was different enough. This was done December 28th, 1985. This one I would think you could include in a Parade Super Deluxe edition. I'm sure the Flesh material will end up on a Parade Super Deluxe edition, and I won't get my wish list of having it as a standalone. But like I said, consider that idea a state, as he puts the bug in the ear. Buzz, buzz, buzz. So again, it's kind of got that jazzy thing. All these sort of precursors to Madhouse. Like I said, I think, it would be very interesting to hear. Again, shows, Prince's versatility. He's jamming with, whether it's Revolution at one point, or, Andre Simone happened to be around one day, or it's some of the Revolution, some of Sheila's band, whatever was going on. You get to hear that sort of how his mindset is working. Like, okay, we're on this sort of groove. Maybe a riff here and there will end up as part of something classic, or, this is just Prince being Prince. This is more him in more of a natural element, where, things like the after shows, the jam sessions, where he's really having fun, whereas opposed to a structured tour, you're like, oh, I got to play the same song night after night after night. Maybe I could switch it up with a few songs here and there, but, these after shows, it's anything goes. These jam sessions, anything goes. And I think it would be good to kind of see that side of it. And again, whether you're a musician or not, just to get that aspect of Prince and just kick back, get your favorite beverage, kick back, put on your vinyl, your CD, your streaming, or however you listen to music now, and just listen to how a band jams. And let's see, next, and this will probably end up on a Parade Super Deluxe, the birthday show in Detroit, so June 7th of 1986, the Parade, the Hit and Run Tour, and for best results of a Prince concert that wasn't your hometown, Detroit. To me, I think they put that little extra funk every time Prince went to Detroit. Because, they were the first city that, was showing them love when he first started. They were the first ones breaking those Prince records. Before all of you that jumped in on Purple Rain, or even before all of you that jumped in when you first saw Little Red Corvette on MTV, the rest of us were like, this the dude. A lot of us, we saw him on the cover of Right On magazine and Black Beat, Soul, whatever was out. It wasn't even on Jet of Ebony yet, but, for the music magazines, and the radio stations, they were hip to the game. And Detroit was one of those first cities that was showing them love. So every time he would go to Detroit, He put that little extra funk, like that musicology, the clip where they do DMSR. Now, I've seen the Los Angeles thing. I saw that in the theater, the simulcast of that. And I was here for the show in St. Louis in 2004 in May. And yeah, DMSR is funky. There's no denying it. But I saw that clip of the Detroit show. Now, there was some extra funk. That was some extra secret sauce in that funk on that one. So, so again, like I said, I've never seen this show in its entirety. I've seen clips of it. So I would be very interested in seeing this. Like I said, it could be a standalone CD or DVD, but I have a feeling the video, at least, if nothing else, is going to end up as part of a Parade Super Deluxe. And I won't be mad at that. That'd be cool. But, again, do a CD, do a DVD, do the CD on Record Store Day. See where we're going with this? See, there's special stuff that you could do on Record Store Day. That could work. But again, like I said, I think just the the video will just end up on a Parade Super Deluxe. Thursday, August 14th, Wembley Arena. That's another Vault wish list. In fact, that one could probably be the CD version of the Parade Super Deluxe. But, if you're going to do a standalone, do a standalone. But that one, that's where you have Sting and Ron Wood. Prince brings them up on stage and they do the Rolling Stones Miss You. Again, it's not a show. I don't even think I've heard this one before. I don't think. But I have a feeling that whenever we do get a Parade Super Deluxe, I have a feeling that would probably be one of the strong contenders for at least a CD. Like, there'll be the Parade birthday show for the DVD or the Blu-ray or whatever. And then for the live CD would be this Wembley performance. And last would be Sunday, August 24th of 1986. Venue, New Morning in Paris, France. Capacity 300. Sold out. And this one, again, like I said, when it came to the after shows, it was a chance to kind of let, everyone's hair down and just kind of just jam. You're not confined to a set list per se. It's just like, hey, I feel like doing some James Brown. So here, he's doing Soul Power, Ain't It Funky. Sex Machine is one of the tracks. He covers Temptations. Covers Jimi Hendrix on this. So, that would be a good standalone. Again, like I said, see, kind of Record Store Day theme this week. So definitely those items are on my wish list. So I definitely want to, at some point, hear or see these things get released and enjoy them. Vinyl, CD, either form of physical media works. And that will basically end this episode. Like I said, a spoiler review, but a little extra. Like I said, just some major takeaways. Plus, couldn't get out of it without doing sort of a vault wish list at the same time. Definitely, we didn't do any questions or topic suggestions this week. I just wanted to focus strictly on the review, but those will be taking place next episode. Been getting quite a few submissions in, so if I haven't responded as of yet, it's been so much going on this past week, in addition to prepping for the show as well. So But I did notice quite a few of the topic submissions or questions. And like I said, we'll start to address those for next week. But also, too, again, support Dwayne Tudor's book. Like I said, he wants to do a third one. He's willing. He's definitely grateful for the response for, especially for this book, but also the previous book. I urge you to get both of them. Get the physical copy of it. So that way this brother can get the third book going. Support. What I might do, I'll work out the logistics of it, but what I might do, if, like I said, everybody's budgets are different, but what I might do is work out the logistics of it, figure out how to go about it properly, but I will purchase another copy of this book and figure out a way to do maybe a contest or something, to where, if you don't have a physical copy, and that's for people that don't already have a physical copy. No, you're prohibited, and of course, friends, family, former band members that are familiar with the host of Amari Purple Talk are prohibited from this contest. But like I said, once I work out all the logistics and once I get an extra physical copy in my hands, then we'll work out a way to get that to one lucky winner. So stay tuned for that. So it'll probably be within, be patient, but, wait a few weeks and we'll see what's happening. So, but other than that, once again, thank you for tuning in and sharing your time by listening to this episode. You can continue your support for Amari Purple Talk either by purchasing Amari Communications merchandise, and that does include Amari Purple Talk t-shirts, mugs, masks. Still doing masks for now. We Funk t-shirts. Also, the answer. There's a couple of t-shirts on there. That's a comic book character that I created. It's my own, billionaire, genius, playboy, philanthropist. And he also happens to be a Prince fan. And I am working hard to get that finished. There's another comic that I want to get started on, different set of characters, but that character is also a major factor in that book as well. And whether I'm finished with this one or not, I'm still going to start on the other one, but details for that later. But buy a answer t-shirt. Those will help me make the way to get that comic book finished. And like I said, there'll be little Prince Easter eggs that I'll drop in, whether it's something that's said, or maybe I can stick an album cover in the background or something, or a song reference or something. So, so be on the lookout for that, but definitely buy any type of Amari merchandise that you might enjoy. Once you click the link to the site, everything's designed by yours truly, but manufactured and distributed by Cafe Press. Or you can just make a Cash App donation for any amount you wish. All those links are in the show notes and in the Amari Communications channel banner on YouTube. But until next week, everyone still be safe, be peaceful, be wild. Don't be too wild. There's too much crazy stuff going on. But just be peaceful, have a peaceful wild, create your day, then create your life. And as always, keep it purple and on the one.